I never judged what my father did for 1 second. Back then, I also believed in Cosa Nostra. If he killed someone, they deserved to die. They did something wrong or broke the rules. Being surrounded by that life made me want to do the same things. It made me want to go out and hurt people and commit robberies. I wanted to be ready. I wanted to know how to handle it. So I was 15 and boxed at Gleason's gym in Brooklyn, New York. I was in great shape, and I was fighting people, and I was building this confidence within myself. I started getting respected because I was the son of Sammy the Bull.
Sammy wasn't there. They had taken him out. Before long, every news station had the story. Sammy the Bull had turned state's evidence. He was going to be a government witness and testify against his old boss, John Gotti. The headline of the New York Post called him King Rat. I had seen too much by that point to be surprised by anything. Balls. Cowards make the best informants. The first thing I thought about, though, wasn't that. It was Gerard. I knew he was going to be devastated. It was like he was one of my fighters, and I had an obligation and a responsibility to him. Somebody even told me that he was asking for me, and that added to it, knowing that. It was strange, because once his father did what he did, once he flipped, it changed everything. Sammy was no longer perceived as a tough guy and criminal, but as something much, much worse. People I talked to were like, fuck his kid. People actually said that. Fuck the fucking kid. His father's a fucking rat. I heard that Gerard was afraid that I would abandon him, that I wouldn't be his friend anymore. I went over to his house that night. I was so naive that I thought I would just be able to go over and see the kid. But when I got off the Staten Island Expressway, the place was surrounded by every news truck in New York. As soon as they saw my car, even though they didn't know who I was, they started running towards me. I had made the mistake of slowing down, but I recognized what was going on and hit the gas. It was crazy. This mob of TV and print reporters chased after me, running down the street after my car. I thought about giving up at that point and leaving. A lot of people had been telling me not to continue training Gerard, but I thought, no, I can't leave. I want the kid to know that I don't hate him, that I haven't abandoned him just because his father's a rat. I found Gerard sitting on a black leather couch, reading a comic book. He looked up. There were tears in his eyes. Why did he do it, Teddy? Why? Gerard had always hidden his emotions and had been careful about what he said, but now he looked open and vulnerable and terribly young. Why did he do that? I tried to think of something that would help him. I was thinking about the kid, not the father, even though I had to talk about the father. You know, sometimes a person is under pressure and he wants to do the right thing, but he's just not strong enough to do it. You just never know until you're in that position. Gerard was almost sobbing at that point. I guess what I'm trying to tell you, I said, is that the feeling I'm talking about can overwhelm everything else. A guy comes in a room wanting to be a fighter, wanting to go out there and hear the crowd cheer for him and have his hand raised and feel good, but then something happens, and suddenly all he can think about is his fear. It becomes too much for him. When I said fear, I thought, here I am talking to Sammy's kid about fear when Sammy couldn't even say the word. I had to push aside what I had been thinking about Sammy. What I'm trying to tell you, I went on, is that what your father did doesn't mean he don't love you. It's just that he couldn't face the fight. Do you understand? Sort of, Gerard said. I guess so. It's your father, it's not you. It's his weakness, not yours. But you don't have to hate him for that. He wasn't trying to hurt you. He just wasn't thinking about anything but this fight that he couldn't face. I didn't know if Gerard understood what I was trying to tell him or not, or if it helped. I think it might have a little. I told him I'd still train him if he wanted to. I thought it was important to offer him that. He was surprised. You will? He said. So we kept training for a couple of weeks after that. But then we stopped. He didn't want to do it anymore. His father wasn't around. His whole reason for training with me in the first place had been to get his father's approval. Now not only was his father not around, he wasn't the guy he pretended to be. So the kid didn't want to train anymore. I felt bad about it, but there wasn't much I could do.